My name is Robert, aka Rob S. I'm here today to support the children and save our children, which is very important. Now people, please, can you spread out a wee bit? Just give yourself a wee bit of space just to be courtesy to the constables, if you don't mind. Now, I'm going to start with the children's panels. Children's panels, people. People think that the children's panels there are there for the sons and daughters of protection to help families. Well, let me, myself, verify in private capacity and full liability. That is not the case. Children's panels have been corrupted. The people at the panels have been corrupted. And this is done by social services and people that represent local authorities, councils. It's a big con, people. My sister lost her son and daughter in 2014 based on lies, fraud and crimes against the family. There was no crime in law, there was no abuse, there was nothing happened to my sister's son or boy. My sister had issues. She looked after her family well, and I can verify that. I've produced numerous panels, including the secret courts, Paisley Sheriff Court, prima facie evidence to show there was no crime in law, no abuse, no injury, no harm, no loss. The wee boy and the wee lassie at the time at school had a 98% attendance at school, and they were spotless every day. But we got two social workers that victimised my sister. And I've done everything in my power to assist my sister. And I also assist people all the time in different matters relating to panels. It's diabolical. People need to wake it up. People think everything's a conspiracy theory. It's a lie or it's made up. Well, I'm standing here today, people, and I'm verifying in private capacity as an honourable man. That is not the case. And people have to wake it up. It's the same as the amount of sons and daughters that's went missing in the last 3 years. Thousands upon thousands have went missing. Nobody has asked the question, where are these sons and daughters? Nobody has asked what has happened to them. Have they been abused? Have they been raped, murdered or trafficked? That's the problem. People are ignorant to the facts. The problem we have in Scotland and elsewhere, as long as it does not happen at your door, it does not matter. Well, let me tell the people here today, and it's a great turnout, and I'm happy to see people making an effort to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people that's fighting for sons and daughters' rights. We have to stop the trafficking. We have to stop the rape, the abuse and murder of sons and daughters. Not just here in Scotland. England, Ireland and Wales, we have an international problem. Big money for criminal cartels. Now, we have a government that's hidden with secret acts under an act, 100-year secret rule, where, in my view, is unlawful. Why would you want to hide crimes against sons and daughters? Why? There's two reasons that I can see. Firstly, it's for the perpetrator to die, and then that's the end of the matter. They don't need to bring it up again. Or, the people that's made this rule are complicit in against crimes against sons and daughters in Scotland. And that's what I'm thinking. Because you want to have secret. You want people that commit crimes against sons and daughters to be prosecuted and held at the highest level and locked up for indefinite periods. Now people, I've seen in my travels in the courts, lawyers get in talking about people that's downloading images of children being abused, raped. Now, the argument they use is that these people have got an illness, they're sick. Well, let me tell you, they are sick. They're really sick. There is no word to explain the sickness, because if anybody has got to sit and watch sons and daughters being abused, raped on a computer or anywhere else, that's immoral. That isn't acceptable, because that could be your son, daughter, grandson or granddaughter. It's important people pay attention to what they're being told here today. We are here for the right reason. We are here to awaken the people, and hopefully the people that's standing here today that maybe just came here for the first time will start awakening other people. Because this is a pandemic with this abuse. It's not called for people. We have to stop it, and the only way we can stop this corruption is bring this system down. that's aiding and abetting in crimes against sons and daughters and families. Social services, the care system, even the care system's abusing sons and daughters. But nobody asks the question. There is no. The media's all part of the cover-up, people. I can assure you that just now. The media's part of the crimes against the sons and daughters of Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales and beyond. And it has to stop. And I want to be one of these people that's in the front line to help stop this, because it's important. Because sons and daughters are the next generations of people that's going to have families and move on the way we move on. When we're not here, they move on with the next generation and next generation. Now, the question that's got to be asked, how must a son or daughter feel after that's happened? Live their life to an adult and still have that memory and that hurt, that trauma. How can somebody accept that? And the problem we have is there is no proper support out there. We've even got the Scottish Government trying to buy people after it's been abused. An example, Warriors, the Warriors Home. And an apology, and that's everything. And we'll give you so much money, a wee apology, just put it to sleep and forget it. And then they try to hit them with a gagging order. How dare they? These people have feelings. We the people here today have feelings. And I feel sorry for the sons and daughters that's not being attended to. There is no protection for sons and daughters out there right now because of this alleged virus. Everything's been removed to protect sons, and even the vulnerable. Vulnerable children, sons and daughters are at risk right now. Vulnerable adults in care facilities are at risk right now. And it's up to us as a community of people, men and women, not persons, men and women, to put a stop to this, to put the word out there and make sure this happens. We cannot allow this to happen anymore. It's diabolical. People, I seen the hurt that happened to my sister when she lost her son and daughter. And I feel guilty to today because I fought nail and tooth to try and keep my son and daughter at home. And I failed. And I feel sometimes when I look at my sister's depressed, she's upset and she's hurting inside. And I feel I'm 50% to blame for that. Because the social services, the two social workers, two women, I won't name them, says to my sister, if you don't get your brother out of your life and stop interfering in what we're doing, you're losing your sons and daughters. That made me even more determined to fight for my sister and her son and daughter. And they end up taking them based on lies, people. It's terrible. And this is happening on a daily basis to our sons and daughters. Social services, local authority, councils or private corporations. They use the word council, private corporations, fictitious entities, fictitious offices such as social worker, legal team, social work department, local authority, council. That's how they escape liability, because people don't know what's going on and they're ignorant, and that's what they play on. That's why they take sons and daughters, because people's ignorance and they don't understand. Because people all their lives for school, that's where the education began, to confuse the people, because what you were taught in school isn't right, because that's how our communities right now, our country, our lands, our businesses and everything's failing, because these people have devised a legal system, a legal society to destroy families, break the bonds. Social services, in my view right now, should be prosecuted. What we have to do, people, in my view, if we get the numbers up, you stand with Anti-Corruption Scotland, because I'm the founder of Anti-Corruption Scotland and Save Our Children. I'll show you how to make change. This isn't about voting for politicians, because they're the criminal elite, and that's a fact, and I can verify that. People have wrote to people like Nicola Sturgeon on numerous occasions asking for answers, and they never answer the question. They pass it to somebody else. And always remember this, people, when you're contacting people like councils or whatever, and you're talking to men and women, each time that you phone back, if you have a problem, they pass it to somebody else. That's the purpose, to escape liability. Council can't take your kids. Social services can't take your kids. This is the bit you have to understand. It's the men and women that represent these fictitious offices, fictitious entities that take your kids. It's the man or woman, flesh and blood, living, breathing, a living fact that causes the thoughts of harm. Your sons and daughters, under common law, is property. When they take your son at 14 and your daughter at 12 or under, without your consent, that's abduction under common law, and it's a crime. And that's a fact, and I verify that because I'm a common law specialist. And I'll stand anywhere any court in Scotland, I'll challenge any man or woman acting in capacity as sheriff or High Court judge, because they're all part of it. The Paisley Sheriff Court is what you call a star chamber. When we, the people, go in there, the door is locked behind you. That's a star chamber, that's an unlawful court, people. It's a hidden court, and that's to hide the corruption. And most times, you will not have your son or daughter in that court to speak. They don't allow it, because if they allow it, then they've got to act. And they've not got the power to do what they're doing. It's because of people's ignorance. It's up to you people today to waken up. Please, I urge people here today, pay attention to what I'm telling you. Everything I'm telling you is coming from first-hand knowledge. It's coming from a good heart, a good mind, and a good intention to awaken the people for the right reasons. I'm here today for the right reasons. Save Our Children are here today for the right reasons. Not to be on videos, being superstars. I'm not interested about being on. I do videos for the reason I do videos, to put information out there. People walk up to me sometimes and say it's an honour to meet me. I don't want people telling me it's an honour to meet me. I'm not here to have an honour to meet me. I'm here to waken the people up to the crimes and the torture harm that's been committed against families, sons and daughters. And that's what I'm here for today. Anyway, people, I would like to thank you for standing apart. I would like to thank you for giving me my opportunity to be heard. It's appreciated, and I hope that you pay attention to what I tell you, because it's the truth, people. I'm going to put you on a new mandate to save our children.
We try and raise awareness about the corruption in our country. The reason we're going on about the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry is because that's truth. This current inquiry is investigating every single institution in Scotland for sexually abusing, exploiting and trafficking our children for decades. Now we're talking about like our grandparents and stuff. They lived through this. This has been going on for 50, 60 years. Now the Scottish Government's admitted that all these institutions have abused all the children. Social services have been a part of kidnapping the children along with child protection. Why we still get these people like walking into our houses and removing children when it's proven in the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry that they're corrupt and they're stealing our children and that they're abusing them? So like I said, the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry just now, guys, as I said, we want to all join together. We just ultimately want everybody to get up and start fighting for their rights. The reason we're here, we're going to start trying to take a bit of control with the mic and stuff. We want to focus on what's happening in Scotland and the United Kingdom, because we ultimately want to work towards getting freedom back for our people and making our streets safer for our children. And right now they're no safe. Right now the institutions that are removing them from your houses and placing them in, children are not safe. They're getting abused and exploited every day. We're here to give you facts, figures and numbers of the truth of this abuse and exploitation. But we need everybody to start getting together and standing up for their own injustices. We want to just get speakers on this mic to speak about their injustices. Once we speak about what we want to raise awareness about, we're going to be making this an open mic for anybody, for survivors and stuff to come forward, to gather evidence, or just to feel a safe place where you can get the courage and feel that you have actually got enough courage to speak out about your injustice, about how our institutions and establishments in Scotland let your family down, let your children down, and are systematically abusing you. And like Rob S pointed out, see when you do stand up to corruption, and you do start writing letters, and you do start wanting answers, the Scottish Government do use child protection and social services to threaten you. They start sending psychiatrists to your door. If you get past that, they'll send social services and say that your kids are, like, they don't think that you're teaching them the right stuff. Like, this shouldn't be allowed. These are our children. We should be allowed to teach our children what we feel is right, not what our governments and our authorities are telling us that we should teach them right, because they're all liars. They've all proved over time and time again, over years and years, that they're liars. So why are we all sitting in our houses listening to them just now, that we should stay in, that we shouldn't go to our friends, that we should sit and watch our children deteriorating, their mental health deteriorating, our government's not offering them any hope for the future, they're not even letting them see that there's anything to look forward to, they're not giving them a time when they're allowed to go out and socialise again. They're absolutely destroying the souls of our children right now. I was walking about yesterday and I swear it looked like the land of the living dead. It was horrible. Our people are walking about depressed, they're walking about sad, they're not socialising with people, they're taking everything away from us that makes us human beings. What makes us humans? Socialising, laughing, carrying on, telling each other our problems, etc., etc. Well, right now, our government's taking all of that away from us, and we're just sitting accepting it. We're saying, oh no, we can't go to wee Mary's because the police might come and we might get a fine. Well, this is where it's all wrong. This is corruption. And as I said, it's not just about that. There is children in Scotland suffering, beyond your imagination, and nobody's allowed to help them because if they stay in and do nothing. And that's why we feel we really need to get out here and start shouting about this stuff. Because right now in the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry, the boarding schools are being investigated. I did have a list, guys, but during printing everything, my printer ran out of ink. But I'm going to get a list. So every week we're going to come here and give you information. We'll hand you what institutions are being investigated, what the findings are, because it's not getting put on the media. All we hear about in the media is COVID. But there's children in our care homes really suffering at the moment. I called the Queen Victoria boarding school during the week. And I asked if they were aware that there's a Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry. I got past security and I got through to someone and they told me yes, they're aware that there's a Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry. I said, well, could you tell me if, since you're aware for decades your school's been guilty of abusing children, exploiting them and trafficking, I says, have you done any recent investigations with this knowledge? Like, have you cleared out any staff? Have you informed the children? And he said no, because it doesn't apply to the children that are there just now. How can that not apply to the children that are attending the Queen Victoria boarding school right now, when they don't even know that in the past this school has been get away with abusing, terrorising, trafficking? The stuff is beyond me what they're getting away with, and that is, as I said, that's why we're here. Also, we want to try and get some sort of shelter raised in Scotland for victims of the Scottish Child, during the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry, somewhere where these survivors can gather and speak to like-minded people and share their stories. Because just the other day I had a message from a guy and he said that his children are grown up and stuff, and he said, I just want to say thanks to you, Laura, and everybody that's out there raising awareness about this. He said, because I was a victim of it. He was in care since he was 9 years old, and he was also in care loss secure unit, and he said that they get away with absolute murder. They did what they wanted to the kids because he had nobody, and he said that it's given him confidence, and hopefully he says, and I have the confidence to come to George Square and speak out about how I was abused in the institutions in Scotland. And that is all what we're about, just to give people the confidence to tell their story, to give their evidence, to let people made aware that there is a child abuse inquiry going on in Scotland, and you can give evidence. And as I said, it is corrupt, but we're working towards changing that. So I got a letter to Nicola Sturgeon as well. I was going to read it out, but I'll let somebody else speak because I'll be here all day. But I just wanted to also make you aware. Now this was in the United Kingdom, right, and it was a legislation. Now as we're making aware that all the children in care and stuff are really, really vulnerable. Now these kids are already vulnerable. The institutions have admitted abusing them for decades and decades. They've not cleared the institutions out. During lockdown, these kids are all stuck in these care homes. Some of them are missing. We don't know how many of them are missing. We tried to get freedom of information requests. Do you know Scotland is the only country in the world that doesn't hold figures for the number of sexually exploited and trafficked children in our country? They've held no figures since 2016. Although they passed the legislation, the Child Scotland and Trafficking Act in 2015, our Scottish Government are holding no figures about how many children since 2016 has been trafficked or victims of child exploitation. Now we're going to campaign and write to the Scottish Government and fight to make the numbers available, because the Scottish public have a right to know. So this was, I just want to quickly finish off with telling you a legislation that was passed last April by the UK Government. So this was passed without anybody knowing, and it's just so everybody's aware of why your children are so in danger in our institutions. Right, so this came from several charities. The number of missing vulnerable children's souls as safeguarding is cut during the pandemic. Trafficked and unaccompanied children are going missing in significant numbers from the UK's care systems, following a government move to dramatically reduce protection for youngsters during the pandemic. Now why would they do that? Why would the United Kingdom government remove safeguarding for already vulnerable children in our care systems when it's been made aware that they're getting trafficked, they're getting targeted by grooming gangs. They're going missing left, right and centre before the pandemic, because before the pandemic there was 4,550 children last year identified by the UK authorities as potential victims of child trafficking. 4,550. So then we went into lockdown in March. In April 2020, they passed this legislation removing all safeguards for children in care. 3 charities have documented alarming series of cases since the beginning of the lockdown and following the legislation introduction in April last year that stripped most legal safeguards for vulnerable children during the coronavirus pandemic. In one case, a teenager was re-trafficked back into the hands of criminals. Another vanished from a care home in London after the support package was removed due to lockdown. Evidence arising that younger children are being targeted by criminals and being made to run drugs, etc. through the care homes. This was called, so it's introduced statutory instrument. You can research this and Google it, guys. It's really important because it also post-adoption is a big problem. Well, this statutory instrument 445, it also makes adoption possible without the court system. So they can literally have social services come in, take your child, don't need to go through a court, and it gets put up for adoption and you don't get a say in it, you don't get a courtroom to challenge it, you don't even get told. So it's called Statutory Instrument 445 and it was passed on the 23rd of April without parliamentary debate or public consultation. So it never went through Parliament for debate and the public didn't get consulted, they just passed it. And this move removed 65 vital legal protections for youngsters in care, leaving already vulnerable children at risk of becoming destitute, exploited and re-trafficked. Even before the legislation, trafficked and unaccompanied children, so children in care, were 30 times more likely to be victims of child trafficking and go missing. So last year, these were the figures for the United Kingdom. Scotland is holding no figures for the child trafficking and exploitation, but the UK figures last year were 4,500 children were identified by the UK authorities as potential victims of trafficking. And as I said, that was before this legislation removed any 65 vital legal protections that were in place for safeguarding children in care. Now they don't have that. That's why I say that it's really important. This is corruption. So they've basically told us to all stay in our houses, and all the children that were already in care or getting care in the community or anywhere in the care system, any legal protection that was supporting them has been removed. So now if they fall victim to traffickers, they don't have a number to phone, they don't have a place to go, they don't have any legal protection protecting them, they've no rights. So they're basically taking all the children that don't have any parents' rights away from them, and they have nothing to support them during this pandemic. So again, I think it's our duty as the people of Scotland and the United Kingdom. They might not be our children, but they're children that live in our country that aren't being protected. So we have to start doing something. We have to start getting up off our arses and shouting for protection for these children. Because like I said, they don't have parents, they don't have families, they don't have anybody else. And right now our country's saying, shut up, stay quiet, we don't care about you. Well, that's not true. That might be our government, but that is the people of Scotland, and that's what we have to start doing. Stand up for these rights of these children that can't stand up for themselves. Where are they supposed to go? They don't have anybody to go to or anybody to tell. And like I said, we've already had. I'll give you one example before I finish up. Laura, so she does not feeling shit the best in the like to talk. But a woman went to Laura. A woman contacted Laura when she done the exposure about Govan Hill, and a woman got in contact with her. Our wee girl, this is so sad, this is a true story that happened in Glasgow 5 years ago, guys, right? This could be your wee girl, this could be your wee boy, this could be your niece, nephew, grandchild. Right, so this woman, her and her man working hard, really hard working family. One wee girl, she was spoiled rotten because she was the only child, etc. All of a sudden, the dad died of a massive heart attack and the mother had a nervous breakdown. Now they had no family. So while the mother went into our institutions, into our mental hospital to recover from losing her man, her life, everything, our daughter had to go into temporary care and she got placed in one of Scotland's care homes, one of the care homes in Glasgow. So this was only temporary, it was only for 6 months. Now this wee girl was only 14 years old, She was placed in that care home. Now 5 minutes up the road from that care home, this was all Scottish guys. So no racism here guys, Scottish guys. A 27-year-old guy befriended her. Now the wee girl just lost her dad, her mum's locked up, she's nobody. He befriended her, he started chatting her up, he started chatting to her. He was 27 years old, she was 14. But this was allowed while she was in a care home. Who was looking after this wee girl? Nobody looks after these kids in the care home, that's what we're saying is a problem. So this guy befriended this wee girl, told her not to tell anybody because he's 27, she's 14, they'd get into trouble. He started meeting her up with her every day, giving her compliments, buying her stuff. She was obviously flattered, the wee girl had never had a boyfriend. Then he told her one day he was going to take her to a flat in Edinburgh to meet his friends. So she was telling her friends, she was really excited. She says, oh, he must really like me, he's taking me to meet all his friends and etc, etc. So she was telling other girls in the care home that she was going to meet all his friends, that he really loved her and stuff. The wee girl went to Edinburgh and I think there was 3 or 4 guys in that flat. Now the guy drugged her that night. The 5 of them had sex with the wee girl. From then, she was then trafficked around flats in Edinburgh, trafficked around flats in Glasgow, made to have sex with numerous men every single day. Where were the people in the care home? Where this wee girl's getting trafficked all over Scotland? That's what I'm saying, how could that happen if these people are meant to be looking after these kids because somebody else can't look after them? So that was, the wee girl got trafficked, as I said, or in all the flats, Ayrshire, Glasgow and Edinburgh. She gave the police when she finally came forward and finished. So after that, she was trafficked in all the flats. The guy started dropping her at Glasgow's Four Corners. Now that's just up there where McDonald's and stuff is. So that wee girl was dropped every night at Glasgow's Four Corners, and the guys knew what guys to come, like knew what girls to look out for, they had a description. And they would just pull up in the car, the wee girl got in the car, had sex with the guys, they paid her, and then the guy picked her up at the end of the night and she gave him all the money. This went on for 6 months. The mum got out of the mental hospital, she got stable, she got her wee girl back home. And this continued, her being trafficked at the Four Corners for 3 months after she was back home with her mum, because she didn't know how to tell her mum. And then she was taking drugs, she was smoking, she was drinking, she was off the rails, but her mum did just put it down to that her dad, she'd lost her dad and she'd been placed in care. So her mum put it down to that, and then one night, I think she was violent with her mum, and her mum was going to phone the police. And the wee girl had a total meltdown and broke down and told her mum that what had been happening. Now they went forward and they went to the police, and that wee girl could give all the addresses in Glasgow, all the addresses in Edinburgh, all the addresses in Ayrshire, and all the names of a lot of the names of the people that had been raping her and exploiting her and trafficking her. I can't remember how many arrests there was, but the police ended up doing their own undercover investigation. I think there was 7 arrests made. They got the guy, the 27-year-old. But as I said, that wee girl, I think she's 19 now or something. The guys are all back out. That wee girl's only 19 years old, and all that she's got to see the people that done that to her, that are free, they've had their punishment. Now that is the justice in Scotland. As I said, that's just one of the stories. That's happening in Glasgow every single day, across Scotland, across your whole country, and people aren't aware about it, and these survivors have nobody to come and speak to. They have nobody to come and tell their stories, and as I said, that's why we're here, for these people to get confidence to come up and tell their stories one day, to be able to stand here and have people to support them, people to give them support after it, but to be ultimately to have the courage to be able to say what happened to them without our country shutting them up. So again guys, thanks for listening everybody, and as we will be back next week, and as I said, we're going to try and focus this on the corruption in our country and in Scotland and the United Kingdom. That's what we want to make it about here, and also for survivors to come forward and tell their story. We will be there to support you afterwards. And cheers again guys, thanks. I'll pass you back to Robert.
How you doing people? There's something I want to address here today that kind of annoyed me during the week on media. There's certain people, I will not name them, saying that when the people come here, it's all about the children. Now, my answer to that, for these people that say that, firstly, there's victims of crime, sons and daughters being raped, murdered, abused and trafficked. Now, if you believe it's only about the children, and that's just your attitude, That is a wrong attitude, because I know some of these people has got sons and daughters. Why don't you just agree and give passport to recreation and let them be abused and raped if that's your attitude? Let me tell you, that really hurts me with my sister losing her son and daughter, people I know is involved in panels. Sons and daughters been taken into care, right? It is about the children, because the children are the next generation for the people. They're going to have families. Do we want to see them be abused, raped, murdered and trafficked? I don't think so. So, all I can say to these people on media, that was highly offensive. It was highly ignorant because of the victims of crime with sons and daughters. Change your attitude, change your way of thinking, because it's wrong. It is about the sons and daughters. And let me be crystal clear. It's not just about trafficking, child abuse, rape, murder. Here, England, Ireland, Wales, and beyond. Corruption is the main feed for all this to happen. Corruption covers every party, every man, woman, son and daughter's life. Corruption is destroying families. And the corruption starts with our children's panels, the councils, the local authorities and the secret courts to break the bond for sons and daughters. I've not seen my nephew for nearly 7 years for no crime in law. I've been penalised. I had him for the Friday to the Sunday and they took that away from me because they manipulated lies, fraud and crimes against the family to take my nephew and niece. And it's diabolical. Again, people, waking up, get the word out there, talk to your brothers, sisters, aunties, uncles, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers, and let's get word out here. Let's get these numbers up, and let's take down this corruption, and let's stop the sons and daughters being murdered, raped, trafficked, and abused. Thank you again, people. I just had to say that to you about it because what was said on that media during the week really offended me, because I still hurt that I can't see my nephew. I can see my niece now, she's of age, but my nephew's still in the care. And right now, within the care system, he's in a home. He's being bullied at school, and he's getting bullied in the home. So where is the protection? And I can verify that because I've already had somebody from the family tell me this. We've managed to get him a lawyer. I don't like lawyers because I don't trust them, because I've sacked every lawyer that's had to deal with my sister, because they don't do what they're supposed to do. They tell you lies and they bulge you up and then knock you down just as quick as they bulge you up. There's a prime example. My nephew right now is being bullied in a care home. And that's wrong. He wants home. That's why we've got him a lawyer. The lawyer's dealing with it. If the lawyer doesn't deal with us, I will. Anyway, people, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to put you on to Diane.
Hi everybody. Right, before I start, I want to read this out to you. This is about Respawner. Sergeant Barrow, who ruined the investigation with Respawner's murder in 2019, has been moved away from the case. It's 2 new sergeants in Easterhouse and Shettleston, and I hope to God now we'd start to see something happening in Reese's case, because it's shocking what took place. I'd also like to add, it's Linda Bonner's birthday tomorrow, and it's wee Ellie Devine's birthday tomorrow, which is Reese's wee sister and his grands. And I'd just like to add a happy birthday to both of them for tomorrow, and to let them know that Reese is always shining down on them, and he'll always be there for them. 2010, I know that was over 11 years ago, but John Hemming went into Parliament and said there was 1,360 forced adoptions, and he estimated over 1,000 of these adoptions were carried out without parental consent, and may have been undertaken wrongly. But Martin Leary, Ministerial Advisor on Adoption and former Chief Executive of Barnardos, which is shocking because Barnardos is under investigation now and have been for a long while, have turned around and said that he doesn't see anything wrong in any of these forced adoptions that took place, which I think is a bit, with the things that's going on at the moment with Barnardos and all the other corruption that's going on in social services and within the government and within organisations that's meant to be looking after kids. I think there's nothing up to now. I've not been able to find anything up to now how many kids have been taken, or how many kids have been taken up to just now. I've not been able to find up to now just now how many kids have been taken, but it's still looking into it to see if I can find anything. The other thing I want to add is I've had a family who spoke to me a couple of days ago. Now, 2 of their children have been removed into the care of a family member because apparently they're not looking after these children properly. Social services has turned around and said to them, because they put their children into boxing or karate, that's abuse. The thing is here, how are families going to know what to do with their kids if social services are coming back and saying, putting your kid into a boxing to get some support is abuse? No, this is all wrong. I'm an ex-social worker, everybody, and I'm disgusted that I'm sitting here reading this about social services. So I went into my job and I took an ethos in my job to work with families and to protect children. And the first thing you do when you're protecting children is making sure you try and remain a child within the family, not remove a child. That's the last resort you do, is remove a child from a family. No leave a child, no take the kids away without getting the support out to the families, and that's what seems to be happening all the time. And again, that's the corruption in the system. The system is totally wrong. And in that, I know we're sitting here talking about the children, but the corruption runs around the whole lot. If the corrupt system is no helping in social services, it's no helping the children's reporters, it's no helping with child protection, then we need to sort the whole lot out before we get it done. Thanks, everybody.
It would be interesting to know what everybody came for today to listen to. It would be interesting to know if anybody tells maybe a couple of the girls the actual thing they came to listen to today. I want to know that, because there's been a lot of subjects discussed. I'm only here for one, and it's the trafficking issues that is still getting a blanket denial in the media. I'm not here to slander the police or beat coppers or anything like that, because it's way above them. I'm here to slander the authorities at the very top of the ladder that blanket deny it repeatedly, and for the last couple of years they just say it doesn't exist. It's quite easy to deny stuff. It's easier to deny than it is to deal with. The life of a trafficked individual isn't a nice one. Maybe from when they're born, if the parents are controlled by a cartel of traffickers, the baby will become a begging prop, and for the first couple of years of its life, like a dog, and then it will be possibly shifted to paedophiles or used by paedophiles, used as a monetary item for a revenue stream, and then the child might hit the 12 or 13 age and develop a voice, so they're no longer any use to paedophiles. So they then go into the sex industry, and they are repeatedly sold 10, 15, 20 times a day, more sometimes, in this city, in one of the tens of dozens of brothels that exist within blocks of here. If anybody wants to debate that, I'm open to it. And then they'll get to an age where they'll have been sexually abused that many times, and they'll have injuries and visible scars from being battered by drunk men, and they'll have bodily injuries, they'll have diseases, and they'll no longer be any good, because the men that use them for sex recognise them, even though they move them from the West End to the South Side to the north of the city and all the different brothels. They end up recognising these girls, and they know them personally, and they change their names and they change their mobiles, but the punters know who they are. So they no longer have a monetary value to their pimps. So then they get put into servitude, and servitude can be working in a hops farm, picking strawberries up in Perth, 18 hours a day, sleeping in a static caravan on a farm in Aberfoyle with 30 other people in a roll mat, getting paid £1.50 an hour, and probably getting brutalised as well while they're trying to sleep. And that's an industry that doesn't even get a nod. Now, last year I approached a lot of the farmers in the Aberfoyle area, and I told them that I had fabricated a workforce and said that I could provide a better workforce for lesser money than the Eastern European gangs that control the fruit market in Scotland and England. And the authorities deny this happens because they don't spend any money looking at it, because they probably wouldn't get a result. The farmers are terrified. They said to me, it wouldn't be worth our lives dealing with you. We've been dealing with these guys for 10, 15 years and it works. That's why you can buy a punnet of strawberries for £1 in some places, because they pay the workforce pennies, they pay them a pittance. They fly them in for 8, 10, 12 weeks and they fly them back out. We all seen during lockdown the amount of Eastern Europeans that landed in Glasgow airport and get bussed up to Perth to pick the fruit out of the ground. And if you don't know about it, then you're ignorant. And I don't apologise for calling people ignorant, but you are. You need to open your eyes to what's going on. We march around the supermarkets buying this stuff and it's picked out of the ground by people that haven't had a life. Go up to a farm in Perthshire and try getting a job. I dare anybody to try and do it, you won't get a job because you're from the wrong background, you're from the wrong ethnic group, you're probably not controllable, and you're probably not going to work for £1.50 an hour, and you're probably not going to have back-breaking, life-changing injuries and be absolutely done in the bin by the time you're 40. So that's what servitude is. Working in back kitchens, working in hotels up north, working in the islands, working in shithole environments and getting forced to do it by the very men that have brutalised you since you were a baby. That's the life of a trafficked person, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them in this city, and yet the authorities, way above the beat cops, deny it. The multiple agencies right across the board deny it. They say that there's only a tiny percentage of trafficked people getting exploited in this city. A tiny percentage, that's utter crap. And you know, it's easy to lie, as I say, it's easier to just deny it than it is to face it and deal with it, because that costs money, and it costs, and they keep cutting police, and they're taking police away from the job they should be doing, which is guaranteeing the safety of the public, and they're sticking them up and down motorways, issuing fines for young boys speeding, or wee guys in the street with a £10 bag of grass in his pocket. They're more interested in the revenue from easy fines, all the easy ways that they generate money, and that's what gets the decent coppers a bad name. So it's the life of a trafficker's not a nice one, and probably most of the people in this country are still oblivious to it, because everybody's got the right to just go about their business and go about their lives, but you have to kind of look beyond your own life at times and the comfort of your own home and get away from comfort. Turn off the television, open your eyes and look at the city that you live in and the city that you represent. I represent myself. Don't force my beliefs on anybody. Good luck to everybody. But I see a major problem when I look outside the nice bits of Glasgow and I look in the fringes. And I don't need to go far before I meet dirty, horrible individuals that are just all about that, and they're exploiting people at every single level within their communities. It's very, very easily done when they use fear. Fear is the currency. And these guys have got big reputations, and they're major landlords, and they collaborate with other major landlords, and that's what gives them the control over the entire community. So the life of a trafficked individual lasts forever. They don't get away from it because of the fear they live in. They could even be getting trafficked by their husbands or their brothers or their fathers, and it does happen, and it is happening. And if anybody that's here just is here out of pure interest and finds it difficult to believe, you can take my phone for half an hour and look at some of the 50,000 messages that have been sent to people and read the content in them and the statements from lawyers who are living in fear because they still operate, and it's not up for debate. It's still getting denied on a massive level, and unfortunately that seems to be the kind of momentum that, you know, that people in Glasgow want to see they want to see me sticking a video up of me walking into a building and catching a man sodomising a child. That's not going to happen. I'll tell you why, because it's upper class now. It's happening in £300 a night Airbnbs all over the city, in exotic apartments and exotic locations, and the authorities know it is. But how do you prove it? How do you walk into a building or an apartment and catch somebody having sex with a girl? They're only going to say they're having sex with somebody they know. You can't. It's an extremely difficult thing to prove. But there are locations in Glasgow where we've watched them for long periods of time, and we can see 25 men in a day on a Sunday going into this individual apartment. They're not going in there to check the gas meter. It's, you know what I mean? It's blatant what's happening. And I hope people listen, and I hope people open their eyes, and maybe next week the numbers will increase again. But thanks everybody for coming, and Laura and Mandy and Diane and Rob and Paul, everybody that comes here, they don't get anything for this. There's no money here, there's no benefit. Right? They spend an awful lot of time doing this, and it's not enjoyable. It's not enjoyable reading people's messages they send you that their lives have been destroyed by horrible people. It's sad, and it's on a massive, massive scale. The buildings that surround us, house abusers, and that's not for debate either. Some of these people are just about to get the chap at the door. There's men my age messaging me on a regular basis that were abused in the care system. Men that don't know each other, but they're all naming the same abusers who work in these very buildings round about us. That's also a fact. So there you go. It's food for thought. Believe it, it's happening in your doorstep, and it's probably happening in the streets she's living. So thanks for coming. Cheers for listening.